we go. Hey, Joe.
Michael, what's up, man?
How are you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Good. I like your background there.
Thank you. That's my logo. I'm a visual artist too, so yeah,
Oh, very nice. You do
busybody.
like collage stuff, or
I,
no? This looks nice. Yeah, kind of nice. I like kind of animated buildings there. I like
yeah,
it.
yeah, that's my vibe. Yeah, it's Kansas City, the skyline, and then I just superimpose kind of a Miles figure in there, silhouette.
Oh,
So
I got it. Yep, I
yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I try to be whimsical and fun. It's good. It lets the brain get a little air in there and breathe.
There you go. There
You
you
know.
go. Well,
So
I'm a family of. My family is a lot of visual artists. So actually, my father did that one
I
behind
dig
me.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's me on a bike at three when I was 3 years old. It's called Mike on the Bike.
Okay. I dig
Yeah.
it. Cool, man. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. You know, the one thing I've been doing this for a long time. I started doing it in my basement with friends. We tape things on the wall and paint and all that. And you
Hmm.
hear studies where a lot of people in senior centers do it to keep their brain active and to keep them just vitality, the vitality. It's such a good thing, man.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, well, hey, man, it's great to meet you. And before we get into next chapter, now that we're coming out of COVID, it's been quite a 3 years on the community. How did you get through it? How good does this album feel to be coming out now?
Well, it's interesting. I think a lot of people have this since this year. I'm coming this year. Have come out with product, new compositions and new recordings because it's kind of been gestated over that period of COVID. For me, it was really I was not very productive compositionally during COVID. I went through like a writer's block, and I just didn't. Nothing came out. So I write from the piano and from the bassoon, but uh, kind of things really changed last year. I guess yeah, it was last year. I had retired from a 33-year job, not associated with music, and that kind of cleared the space, cleared my mind. And I started getting together with a pianist that I played with before, Matt King, lives in New Jersey, not far from me, and we decided to put together a rehearsal band, just every week or two, getting together to present new compositions. Um, and it gave me a timeline and something to work towards. And he's a great composer and pianist. So we started going over new material, both his and mine. And that kind of was the genesis for this particular recording.
So, talk to me a little bit about what you hope the listener gets from this album.
Well, the dimensions of the instrument, not only as, an instrument the bassoon has always been, majority of its use has been in orchestra and chamber music. So it's kind of a mission that I've had over the last 50 years to present the bassoon playing something different than what you normally hear. So it's a continuation of that to present the bassoon as an expressive jazz instrument, one that can improvise and present its own voice.
As a bassoonist, how did this journey begin and who were influences in the beginning for you?
Well, there weren't many because there's not a lot of them out there, but certainly saxophone players were very inspirational to me. Early on, I was listening to John Coltrane and Sonny Rollins, more recently Lester Young, and Miles Davis, of course. But in terms of the bassoons, there was one guy in Australia who played in the Australian Jazz Quartet, Earl Buttle. He's since passed. So he was an inspiration. Also, Eric Dolphy taking the bass clarinet into a new place was definitely inspirational to me because I saw that he had taken an instrument that really was hardly ever used in jazz and really became an amazing sound. And now many people play bass clarinet. So I think that was an inspiration. Just the feeling I got from hearing jazz players playing something so personal and really from their heart and from their soul. That's something that really was attractive to me. And I felt that the bassoon could do that as well. I should mention that my first bassoon teacher was very supportive of jazz because she at that time was married to Paul McCandless, the jazz oboist or improvising oboist. So she saw that since her husband was doing it, why not on bassoon? So those things really helped me early on. And I'm a stubborn guy, so I mean, obviously there was this like, why don't you just play tenor or baritone or alto? People, that was that kind of when it was because it's more difficult to play that instrument.
Yeah.
It takes a longer period of time. So I did go through a classical training. I went to a conservatory for 4 years and played the repertoire that bassoon players learn to play when they're in college. But all along that, I was grabbing every opportunity to improvise. So there's the challenges are, first of all, you don't have role models that much. Secondly, it's a softer instrument, so you have to deal with dynamic issues. Um, but the positives of it are that it's got 3.5 octaves, and so it's got this amazing range. And I think it's really cool the way it attacks and has that staccato sound and that bubbly, kind of warm, kind of comical aspect. So it's got everything from the mournful, crying high register to this kind of bubbly, bouncy low register, which evokes a lot of humor because people hear it. They've heard it on cartoons all the time. The bear falls down.
Yeah.
So that's a long answer to your question.
No, it's good, man. So what was the first live jazz show you saw that really blew you away?
Good question. Trying to think because I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, and I used to hang out at a place called Talk of the Town when I was like 16 years old, and there were local jazz musicians that played, and I was just knocked over by hearing them and watching them improvise and this whole style, the whole swagger, the whole thing. And I would just nurse a beer for until the waitress would come up to me and like get really pissed off after 3 hours, and like, but I was just loving the loving watching these musicians come into play. I did have a good I was lucky to get into a performance art high school when I was in my senior year, and there I was able to get a jazz. There was a jazz improv class, and musicians from New Haven would come in, and I got to associate with them and hang out with them. And they were very uh, uh, very generous with me and receptive to the idea of something unusual, something unique. And so that was important, having that foundation. I also was the shadow of a piano player who used to lead jam sessions in New Haven called Eddie Buster. And he would go and do piano bars, and I just take every opportunity to follow him and play along with, what I could. So he was really very generous with me. And, having those people, it's just different now. If you wanted to learn jazz, primarily you'd go to a university and learn it that way through school education. It's changed. That I'm old enough where that really didn't really was just starting when I was in my late teens. I mean, there was Berkeley School of Music. I think there was University of Texas had a good jazz department, but now everyone does.
Yeah, for sure. So what
Yeah.
is it that you like the best about being a professional musician? You've been at it for a while. What do you like the best?
Um, the best thing I like is make doing something that is really exciting and creative, and with other musicians, interacting with other musicians, and making money at that, being able to do that. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes involved in preparation, practice, and all that. But when you get on the bandstand and you're playing, there's just some magic. It's just magic is happening. And you also feed off the audience that's there as well. So if you can sense that we're there with you, that feeds you and kind of pushes you to heights that you might not reach if you were playing in a practice room.
So talk to me a little bit about evolution over the years. You've been at this for a while. What has been the key to longevity for you? What has been the key to staying in this game and being evolving and doing it at a high caliber?
Um, the people you play with, obviously, you want to have musicians that are inspiring to you. I've had a long collaboration with the Mingus groups, the Mingus Orchestra, the Mingus Epitaph, and fortunately, I joined up with those. And those guys are high level. So playing on with those musicians regularly definitely keeps your technique high, up. And I think just every time, like just before I was doing this interview, I was practicing and just working on things that have been difficult for me for decades, and really trying to perfect the instrument so it doesn't get in my way of my ideas. I don't want it to stop the flow or what I want to be able to play. So that's kind of something I've been working towards and will continue to work towards as long as my fingers can move and I have teeth in my mouth.
Well, you've also been around some heavy hitters like, Red Rodney, you Went Marsalis. There's been a lot of names that you've been around. What
Right.
have you taken from those kinds of players that you in turn teach younger players?
Well, I think that obviously the enthusiasm for playing, the continual growth that these musicians have shown through their careers, um, and the fact that the nurturing aspect, that understand that this is something that the next generation will be taking up, and kind of that responsibility to passing along your experience, your ideas. And I mean, for example, next week there's a guy coming from a bassoonist that heard one of my albums a couple 5 years ago. He's a young guy, 16 years old, just when I started, and they're coming over. Their family's coming over, partly to see New York, but also to study with me, the guy, for like five days, and then he's going to study with the first bassoonist from the Philharmonic, because he's doing his recital at the end of his high school, and he really liked what I did, and he transcribed one of my solos, which he's going to play on his recital. So that's really cool. That's a good feeling. I feel like if he's willing to come out here and study with me from Australia, I feel like I've kind of, if I can get someone to be that inspired, I've done my job.
So, if you could see any show in the history of jazz, get into a time machine and go back, who would you love to see that you hadn't had the chance to see?
Charlie Parker,
Yeah.
Miles Davis in the late, in the 50s with John Coltrane band. I'd love to see that group with Philly Joe Jones and Paul Chambers and Red Garland. That would be outrageous. Charles Mingus, I would have loved to hear him play with Eric Dolphy. That would be like ridiculous. Would be so much fun. I mean, we see the videos, but just
Yeah.
to be able to like be old enough to be and to go to the 5 spot for like 3 or 4 nights in a row to hear these guys play. Thelonious Monk, of course, Sonny Rollins, and yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to be able to hear Bill Evans and Rahsaan Roland Kirk and these great players back in the 70s at the Village Vanguard. Even though I was in my late teens, it was still, I was with it enough to know that this was some magic there that I had to catch. So I had the good fortune of having older friends when I was 14 that were into jazz, and I was lucky to be exposed at that time. Also, my parents both are artists. My father is an improviser in his own way. He's a painter, and so they gave me a lot of support early on.
So, everyone out there, Michael, has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you ultimately live your life and lead it. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I think I'm a hard worker. Um, I'm persistent. I hopefully, when inspiration comes, I want to grab it. I don't want to procrastinate. I want to put it down on paper. I want to work and continue writing new music and putting out new music. Um, uh, at the same time, I would hope that my maturity and my experience comes out through my instrument, so I'm playing more meaningfully, where the notes mean more. Maybe that not as many notes, but the ones that I do choose have more impact, emotional impact.
So,
And yeah, and I guess
yeah.
finally also pull back on my own ego when I'm playing with other musicians, to look at this as something that is really a democratic thing, and to collaborate and really in kind of I guess benefit from the talents of musicians that I'm playing with and use them. I always look like basketball. I'm a big NBA fan. Like looking at the Nuggets play a couple nights ago, I went, look at this guy Jokic. He's so humble, but he's assisting all the time, helping everyone else.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I'm not I don't accompany. I mean, it's not an accompanying instrument like piano or a chordal instrument, but you can still provide that. And I love being in that supportive role, helping someone really rise, and help him or yeah, support him or her in their, when they're doing something amazing creatively.
So if anyone wants to pick up next chapter, learn more about you, live shows, anything about your world, where can they go?
Just go to my website. It's got the links to everything. It's
Cool.
Jazz Bassoonist, JAZZBASSOONIST. There's a lot of double consonants and vowels in that. JazzBassoonist.com. And that has a link to the new recording. There's a Bandcamp site that they can download and purchase individual songs of the entire album digitally. That's where people are doing it a lot. I'll be performing on August 4th in New York at Django with that group that recorded that music. I think it's August 4th, I should know for certain. And that band with Matt King on piano, Tommy Campbell on drums, and Andy McKee on bass will be there playing music from that album and some new stuff too.
Excellent, Michael. This has been great. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for your time. Best of luck with everything.
I like all your questions, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day.
You too, man.
Bye-bye.
And before